Athletics on Zoom is really difficult. I mean, the first time took a bit of learning and that was quite good fun, but the second time it was just really difficult to make things different and interesting and engaging, I suppose.
It was a major impact on the club and on supporters and players. In fact, if anyone incurred or caught the virus, then the impact it could have in their family life as well.
However, that 20 does impact on how much money we make.
Not a financial viable option, or from a health point of view, to participate last season.
In effect, we might have to give back a substantial amount of money.
Hello and welcome to this discussion. I'm Colin Grant, Editorial Director of Business Connect Interactive, and today we'll be examining the impact of lockdown on Scottish sports. We'll find out what happens to a sports club when all sporting activity is cancelled for a prolonged period. We'll examine the impact on the club financially and look at how the members have been affected. To guide us through those and other related issues, I am joined by two guests from widely differing sporting organisations. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Colin Chisholm, who is the commercial manager of junior football club Auchinleck Talbot, and Scott Hamilton, who doubles as the chair and head coach of Elgin Amateur Athletics Club. A very warm welcome to you both, and thank you for joining us. I'd like to begin with Colin Chisholm. Colin, Auchinleck Talbot took the decision to withdraw from all competitive fixtures during lockdown. How big an impact on club finances was the loss of match day income?
Obviously, our decision not to participate in the Football League last season was a major impact on the club and on supporters and players. The decision we took was purely on the basis of thinking of the welfare of the playing staff, the manager, supporters, and also the impact if anyone incurred or caught the virus, then the impact it could have in their family life as well. There were also several restrictions being placed on playing, in that players had to travel individually in their own transport. We were unable to use changing rooms and dressing rooms. Plus, we had to apply certain other applications during the game to disinfecting balls, goalposts, corner flags, etc. Plus taking everybody's testing when they arrived for the match with no crowds present. So we took the decision at that stage that it was not a financial viable option, or from a health point of view, to participate last season.
And that's very admirable, and I think you made the correct decision for health reasons. I'm just wondering how that impacted on the finances of running the club.
Well, financially, obviously, admission income has a part to play in our financial position for the year, although it is probably a lesser source of income than other sources, such as our major sponsors, our own fundraising, match sponsorship, etc., which is a considerable part of the club's income during the year. So as far as the admission prices goes, that was probably towards the lower end of our annual income. We were fortunate in that our major sponsors supported us very well during that period. We didn't lose any. In fact, we actually attracted a new major sponsor during that time. And our supporters were absolutely magnificent with the support they've given the club financially and other ways through alterations and improvements we have made to the facilities during the past year.
And what about the social club? I know that you rely on that as well.
Yeah, the social club has been closed down for a major part of the period, obviously, with the COVID restrictions which were placed on it. However, the social club was able to survive. We were getting monthly grants from the local authority, which has helped the social club to remain in place. We were open for a short period, but as I say, we have been open now are closed now for some considerable time. and hopefully come June, we should be able to reopen again. However, during the period, it allowed us to put on an extension to the social club, and we're also just finalising a refurbishment to the main hall as well. So it's had its pros and cons.
Yeah, like most organisations. These government grants, the local authority grants you mentioned, are
Yeah.
they repayable, or are they?
No, they're not repayable.
So that's quite good. You got some support from the local council.
That's right. Well, that was able to cover our monthly overheads, obviously, which is still had running, you know.
Yeah.
Plus gave us a bit in reserve, which we're able to use in other ways, as I say, towards refurbishment, etc.
Thank you very much. Turning to Scott Hamilton, what has been the biggest financial concern for Elgin Athletics Club during the lockdown?
That's a good question. We don't have employees, which makes life an awful lot easier. But the greatest financial concern to us really has been that we received a substantial grant from the National Lottery in 2019 to be used in 2020. And we obviously weren't able to do that because of the nature of what we're using it for. Was that the club had turned 50 years old. So we were planning some big event, which we obviously couldn't do. So now in 2020, we have had an extension, 2021, we've been given an extension on that money to be able to use it in a slightly different way. But if restrictions keep going as they're going, we're not going to be able to use it like that either. So in effect, we might have to give back a substantial amount of money, and if we don't get to use it to put on the event that we wanted to, we won't get the income from that event either. So that's sort of our biggest constraint throughout this.
How much money was the grant? What was the amount of the grant?
Just over 10 grand.
Okay, so it's quite a lot for a club like yours.
Absolutely. And the amount of money that we could have taken in as a result of the event would have been in the thousands as well.
Have you spent any of that £10,000?
No.
Well, that's lucky. What about individual club members, especially those who compete in the various events, who are no longer able to use the facilities for training? I mean, did they, for example, find other ways of maintaining their fitness, or did some of them not?
Good question. So some of the groups did Zoom call sessions, which were quite challenging to the coaches. Obviously, we're used to being outside with an awful lot of equipment and a variety of things that we can do, but athletics on Zoom is really difficult. It was particularly the second time round. The first time took a bit of learning, and that was quite good fun. But the second time, it was just really difficult to make things different and interesting and engaging, I suppose. We're quite fortunate that our athletics facility is open to the public, so the kids could still went down and run around the track if they wanted to. They couldn't use the long jump pit or the throwing circles, but they could have used the track to run, and quite a few of them did. But an awful lot of them didn't, and that was very evident when we came back out of lockdown. Particularly the first time, where we did really well, particularly my group, we did really well in the Zoom calls sessions. And I thought, well, when we get back, we're just going to go back into it and get back into our normal routine. And I very quickly realised that they got sore really quickly. So even though we'd been doing all those sessions, they hadn't been running. So therefore, or throwing or jumping. So therefore, the impact of running again was making them quite sore. So I had to alter what I did really quickly to try and prevent any more soreness from happening. And then the second time out, I learned my lesson, and that we have to be really gentle in getting them back in before we apply the hard work again.
And did most of the athletes come back, or did they all come back?
Not all, no. So at the end of 2019-20, our membership was 96. and at the end of the membership year for the following year was 71. So it's not bad, a pretty decent proportion. However, that 20 does impact on how much money we make.
Well, because of they pay membership fees.
Yes, yeah, and stripping fees. So every night they come down, they pay us a certain amount.
Okay. I was just wondering if, apart from the physical side of things, were there any sort of mental health issues experienced amongst any of the athletes because of prolonged withdrawal symptoms?
I think we saw the better side of that. I think we saw the joy of being back out with our friends. There were a few people who didn't come back quite so quickly. So yes, there were probably a few who were a bit anxious about coming in. But in terms of us seeing their anxiety and seeing any issues whilst they've been with us, not really. Really, we've seen them being happy to be back outside, back doing what they like doing, back with their pals. So we've been quite fortunate, really.
Okay, thank you. Colin Chisholm, what did the players do during lockdown, being unable to train properly, and how might this impact on the performance when the leagues start back?
Well, initially following lockdown, we were still able to train, even when the teams who chose to participate in the league this season, we still chose to train once a week. So that was all right. And then training had to cease as well. Some players went out on loan. A few players went out on loan to other clubs and other leagues for short periods. So that kept them fairly active and training probably once or twice a week. We then got permission whereby we could restart training again. But again, this only lasted a very short period. We now have advice that we can restart training again on the 17th of May. However, during the whole period, our players have been training on their own, which they're in the habit of doing anyway normally during close season. So they're all fairly fit at the moment. Obviously, probably need to be slightly brought up to speed, but hopefully that will happen once they get back into training come the 17th of May.
Okay, Scott Hamilton, what changes do you anticipate as a consequence of lockdown in the sort of short to medium term for the club? For example, do you think that the joy that you spoke about would lead to an upsurge in membership over the next few months?
Yeah, well, we've got a waiting list for the first time ever.
Right.
Over the weekend there, we managed to bring 11 people off of it. But over the weekend, we had another 5 inquiries. So, yeah, we've got a lot of disappointment, unfortunately, in that this is the time of year that people tend to inquire. And we've got more inquiries than ever, and we just don't have the space for them. We're restricted in how many people can be in each group, and it varies per age, and it's particularly the wee ones who are wanting to come in. So 9 to 11 years old, say, and they can only have 8 people in a group, and we've got fairly limited number of coaches also. So therefore, we can only take in the number that we can have. So
in effect, the lockdown has had its pros and cons for you as well.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, there has been things that have made things a little bit better for us. So we have different start and finish times, which makes the process of taking folk in a lot easier for the people who take off their names and take their money, which is now done online. It used to be done in cash. But likewise, it done on online payments is more difficult because somebody has to go in and tick off who's done what and keep a record of it, and then go back into an email and send an email back to the parent and say, you've not paid for 3 weeks, you owe this amount of money. Whereas when it's cash, you can see it. Every person who comes in, you tick it off, and it's an easy thing done. So yeah, there's definitely things that have helped, and there's definitely things that have made life a bit more difficult.
Okay. Finally, Colin Chisholm, I'm just wondering what the outlook is for Auchinleck Talbot now that we're coming out of lockdown. Obviously, you've had some financial issues. It appears that they weren't too serious, but where do you see things going over the next 6 months?
Well, as I say, we have been told that we can restart training the 17th of May. We can start arranging friendly matches from the 19th of June, and the league is scheduled to restart or to start the new season on the 17th of July. So that covers the playing position. It will be difficult because at the moment we still don't have any advice on the admission of crowds. We still haven't been told that we can start using changing rooms again. So there are a few issues which are still going to be looked at and hopefully resolved before the latest, the 17th of July, when the season restarts. Obviously, the use of dressing rooms is a major impact. As you can imagine, if it's a cold day, a wet day, mucky park, and you can't expect players to jump into their cars and drive home perhaps an hour and a half's journey without being able to use the changing rooms and showers. So that obviously is a major thing. Obviously, we'd also have to build up our fan base again, although I don't think that will be a major problem because we are very much a community-orientated club, and the support we have from not only Auchinleck but from the other villages around is really excellent, and I can't stress that strong enough, the support they give us as well as our sponsors. So at the moment it's a bit of take it as it comes, and hopefully as each hurdle is cleared we can then move on to the next one. And so as I say, it's slightly unclear at the moment, but hopefully over the next 2 to 3 months all the major issues will be resolved, COVID permitting, of course.
Well, thank you very much to both of you. That brings us to the end of this discussion. I would like to thank Colin Chisholm and Scott Hamilton for joining me today, and wish you all the best, both of you, in your future endeavours for your clubs. Thank you very much.
Thank you.